So rental prices have been going up for many years, but how do you price your rental home? What factors do you use? What do you need to take into consideration so that you don't just grab at numbers in the dark? You use real, relevant data so that you can get the right price to get your home filled quickly without leaving money on the table. That's what we're talking about today. Okay, so in today's market, tenants are really sensitive to price increases. Every landlord should get a little bump every year if you renew the lease with your tenant, just to keep up with the expenses, rising taxes, and other expenses. But how you price it from the beginning or when your tenant turns over is going to be really crucial. The last thing you want to do is overprice your home because you're just wasting days on market, and those days are just ticking, and the longer it sits on the market, the less you probably will get, and you'll have probably some more vacancy time. If you underprice it, you're leaving money on the table, so you don't want to do that either. So I'm going to talk to you today about a few things that you should think about, some points to consider when pricing your home. First, we'll be looking at the right kinds of comparable properties to assess your rent. Next, you want to look at the time of year and the conditions and the demand and how that affects your rental price. And lastly, market fluctuations and other factors such as the sale market that can also impact your rental price. So let's get going. Okay, so number one, let's look at comparables. We use the word comps in the real estate lingo, and comparables are really just other properties that are similar to your home. You want to look at similar properties geographically is probably a good place to start. Then you want to look at similar square footage. What other features does the property have? Does it have a similar number of bedrooms, bathrooms, the amount of finished square feet? How updated is the property? Those are all the kinds of things you want to take into consideration and compare to your home and see how it lines up with those other properties. If it's right in line, you probably can price it right on par with what the other properties have sold for. Now, sites like Zillow and a few other sites online will give you a base, they're a good guide to give you some insight as to a ballpark range, but really they don't have enough of the data that a real estate agent or a property manager would have, for example, because we can see everything that has rented. We can see how long these properties have been sitting on the market. That's going to tell you that, this has been way too long. Don't price it way up here. Price it where the property actually rented, not where you're seeing all these listings active on the market, because those properties are going to sit there if they're overpriced. We want yours to get rented. So looking at the right kinds of properties, looking at rented data, and then making your decision is going to help you price it right from the comparable perspective. Okay, so the second factor I would take into account is the time of year. Real estate is typically the busiest in the spring and summer. You probably hear that in the sales market, but that's also true in the rental market. We see a huge spike in move-ins and move-outs starting in March all the way through August into September, and that's when people are moving. So when there's a high demand for rental property, well, guess what? You can charge more. You're going to have more properties on the market, but if yours looks great and you have, that's a different video. But if you do everything to make sure when they come in the door that there's no reason they don't want to rent your home, then if you price it in the summer, you can definitely maximize your rental price. But if you start getting into the November, December, and the holidays and the winter, and people aren't really moving unless they have to, there's definitely people that do move in those months, but it's a lot less. And when you have less demand, you can't ask for as much. So you need to take the time of year into consideration as well when pricing your home. Okay, and number three is really taking into account market fluctuations. And really, there are a lot of other factors that can affect the rental market. For example, if sales are really high, when interest rates were really low and everyone wanted to buy a property, well, tenants were leaving and not as many people were renting because they were looking to purchase a home. But when interest rates are high or the economy is bad and there's uncertainty, then more people will rent because they don't know what's going to happen. And so you as a landlord have to be able to be flexible with your rate and adjust it as you need. So I would take all three of those points into consideration. One other word of caution. We have had people who have come to us to ask about helping us rent their property, and they say to us literally in these words, here, my mortgage is this, my expenses are this, and I want to make sure my tenant pays for the HOA and so on, and I want to build in a buffer, so I need to rent it for X. Well, let's say that number was like 3,000, but their rents in the comparables, the rents in their community were 2,500. Well, no one's going to rent it for 3,000. So I would caution you to make sure that you look at really the market and the comparables. If you need to cover a certain mortgage, that's fine. And maybe renting isn't the right avenue for you, but you can't base that rental price on your expenses. If you're going to be a landlord, you need to have the cushion, you need to have all of those things, but you can't expect somebody to pay what you need to get. You know what I mean? So just take that as a word of caution, because I've seen a lot of people come into it backwards based on what they need to get versus what someone actually will pay. That's super important. So hopefully you found that video helpful. Check out another one of our videos for more helpful tips for landlords, and hope you'll subscribe to our channel, share it with other people you know. I'll see you next time.